It's great to welcome Joe Kimball and Malcolm Ray, representing Dignity, one of our mission partners at St James and Emmanuel. What is Dignity? Tell folks at St James and Emmanuel what it is you actually do.
Dignity brings people together to build communities, and those communities then bring people and other people closer to Jesus. And by doing so, we look at the alleviation of disadvantage in that local community. And when we say disadvantage, we're talking about disadvantage in all its forms, whether that be poverty of spirit, poverty of mind, poverty of education, health, finance, the list just goes on and on. And fundamentally, how we do that is we bring people together to form Jesus-centred communities, and we call those life groups. And those life groups then go on through prayerful behaviour to identify need in the local community, and through that, identifying that need and working within the local community to address that need, disadvantages is overcome. By way of scale, we've got 1,000 life groups that we know of at the moment. Those operate in 7 sub-Saharan African nations, and we're also seeing signs of growth now in India, America, and much closer at home in Wales. So we're starting to see a global expansion as well as just a prime area of interest in sub-Saharan Africa.
Essentially, what you're saying then is that groups of people come together as disciples, and then they form transformational communities so that from a place of discipleship, they then bring abundant life, as it were, to the communities in which they're situated. Is that
That's a great way to sum it up, Nick.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But it started in Africa.
It started absolutely in Africa.
Some of the people at St James and Emmanuel, through perhaps links at Didsbury C of E, may know the founder. Do you want to just talk about that?
So John Witt is our founding member. He is a lead mission pioneer. And many years ago, he took himself and his family to Zambia to start working in disadvantaged communities, predominantly, and John's real heart is for those people that perhaps the established church has left behind, those who don't have access to the gospel and therefore don't know of its existence. Right. So it's really very much about bringing bringing the message of the love of Jesus to those who haven't heard the word at all.
What I really love is that Dignity believes that the people that are there are the ones that God will use to reach those communities. So it's not about us. It's never us reaching that community. It's us raising up the people who God's already put there. And Isaiah 61 verse 3 is our founding verse, that they will be called oaks of righteousness, the planting of the Lord for the display of his splendour. And that's what we see time and again. We see these people being raised up and bringing hope and life in their community.
That's really interesting, because in a sense what you're kind of saying, and I guess this is in the word dignity, isn't it, is that this is not like a 19th century missionary going out to sort of bring Western and Christian values out. It's actually about saying, you have everything you need. We just want to introduce you to this person, Jesus, and then allow you and him to do this work together in your own place.
Absolutely, yeah.
And in saying that, that's an interesting point as well, because from what we've learned in Africa, we're seeing that growing back outwards. So the work that's going on in Wales is very much based upon what we've learned in Africa and what has worked in Africa.
And sometimes giving dignity to people is actually just the time you spend, the resources that you give, and the fact that you believe in people. And it makes a huge difference, doesn't it?
It really does. Proximity is so important.
Yeah. If a life group gets established and is doing really well, is part of the way you see this working that people from that life group then start new life groups somewhere else so that you don't have to do all that initial work and that actually they self-propagate? Is that part of the sort of working?
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
And we say we know that of 1,000 life groups, there may be more.
Yeah.
And what we have certainly found after COVID is that we are discovering life groups that have cropped up in various places. What we're looking to achieve is that either life groups self-propagate, or that people stumble across, or they're guided towards our material and develop stuff on their own.
How does our financial gift help the work that Dignity is trying to do?
Sure. Well, let me start by saying thank you, because the gift you've given us is significant to us. It's 2.5% of our annual budget, so it is no small thing to us. So we're really grateful, and to have that kind of 3-year let's do this together is also a real blessing to us. That's great. And for us, we always invest our time, our money, our resource, our energy in people. It's not about buildings and structures, it's about people. So the money you've given us is going to help us seek out people who have a heart for Jesus, a heart for community, and are people of action. We'll go and find them, we will walk with them, we'll learn with them, we'll equip them with resources, and we'll encourage them that they are the person God's put there to reach that community.
I mean, I know what it's like running basically a volunteer-led organisation. It has its challenges and it has its joys. Perhaps you could tell us what's the kind of high points for Dignity at the moment and what are some of the struggles?
The whole COVID lockdown time was a real low point for us. The life groups in Namibia and Kenya really struggled to meet. And as lockdown spread across the world, that became more and more of an issue. And from our own, if you like, central point of view, we weren't able to travel. So the personal contact that we had, we couldn't do. But like all things, out of difficult times comes something good. So we really had to become inventive. We had planned a large bringing together of people in Africa. And we had to sit down and think, okay, if we can't do that, what are we now going to do? And out of that grew the making of our methods and our materials available online. That material is now being accessed way, way wider than we could ever have reached just by being on the ground as our small team.
So this is web-based resources, is it?
Web-based resource that is printable locally.
Interesting.
And it's made available on a pay what you can. So if you can't afford to pay for it, download it, use it, crack on with it. If you feel you can make a contribution, please do.
That's really good. So you've actually, because of COVID, you were able to make the material even more transmissible.
Yeah, we really pivoted what we did, and spent those 2 years of what's happening. Focusing on how do we make this stuff available as widely as possible. And while we were developing that, what we really kept in mind was an approach that we christened as least first. So if we're making stuff available on the internet, make sure it can be accessed by somebody who has no technology, and they can do it from an internet cafe or a friend with a phone, or if you've got the lowest common denominator, the mobile device, you can still pull this stuff off and get to it.
So COVID was both a challenge, but also ended up being something of a blessing.
It ended up that way. We managed to turn what could have been a sitting on our hands, doing nothing, into a real opportunity.
Well done. I bet it was stressful as well.
It was, yeah.
I think it's really important to say that is coupled with our on-the-ground proximity. So, and where people struggle with connectivity or data, we work to get hard copies in the hands of team members who will go and carry it to you.
So you're having to use like a kind of mixed mode approach, sort of digital and analog, as it were, to make sure that everybody's covered.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, that's really good. And what about like a high point for Dignity? I mean, it sounds like that was a high point too, but...
well, we turned it into a high point, but initially it was, what are we going to do?
Well, I think the wonderful thing about what we do is it's not large projects, But there's so many small stories of transformation that each of those is a high point, really. It's because what might seem small to you or I is actually huge to the person whose life it is. And then I want to read you the words of Clive, who's in Namibia, and I want to read it because I want to honour his words and get it right. So he says, "I am the message. My life has completely changed. I used to be drunk all the time, turning up at weddings and events and causing chaos and confusion. Over time, a life group befriended me and helped me. My life has completely changed through the message of Jesus. I now lead a life group and many people are interested because they see the change in my life. I want to see many life groups around my village."
Wow.
And when you think about it, we all know that person, don't we, who drinks too much and turns up and causes, and the kind of the ripple effects that life has. And to see Jesus meet that person in that place and change their life, we intrinsically know the butterfly effect that will have on whole communities. So we see this whole array of different solutions in different places and lives, but each of them is a high point.
I feel totally inspired. I feel completely inspired, and I'm sure the people watching this will too. Are you able to share any items that our church community can pray for, perhaps in their home groups or individually?
What we're looking for are people who have a real heart for Jesus, people who are people of action, people who are willing to go, people who are willing to give their time, people who are willing to share their skills and resources. So the ask for prayer is, when you pray for this, if you could ask for God to raise up the right people at the right time and connect and ensure that they are connected with us. And then additionally to that, I think we would ask for prayer for our discernment, so not just Joe and I, but the whole Dignity team, for their discernment, wisdom and ability to hear God as we continue on this, what is really an exciting journey.
Yeah. Well, those are great prayers. We'll certainly do that. Thank you so much for talking. Thank you for being you and doing what you're doing. And we're just delighted to be in partnership with you. So God bless.
Thank you.
Great. Thank
It's
you,
been lovely
Nick.
to chat to you about it. Thank you very much.